What's up everybody, and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have the keys to the all new Yamaha R7 sport bike. This is going to be a super awesome bike to check out alongside my 2007 Yamaha R6. So in today's video we're going to see, is the new R7 an upgrade from the R6? Now, while my bike is a few generations old, I've ridden the previous generation R6, the 2020 model year. We've done a full review and comparison on the last year for the R6. So I have a pretty good understanding of what the R6 has been like in the last 10-15 years. However, the new R7 has taken its place as the road-going normal sport bike from Yamaha that's now their mid-level. You got the R3 down below and the big boy, the R1, up on top. So we're gonna check these out real quick. Obviously the styling's a little bit different with the old R6, but the newer R6 still has a lot of the same characteristics when you look at the exterior styling of the R7 versus the latest R6. But then riding the bikes is gonna be very interesting to compare, because my bike has like 125 horsepower. The last year for the R6 had closer to 117. This bike has 70 horsepower. So a huge decrease in horsepower on the R7 from the R6. However, the R7 has like 10 to 15 more pound-feet of torque comparing it to an R6, and a much lower redline. So a completely different bike, a 2-cylinder motor versus a 4-cylinder, so very, very different. So with that said, let's go ahead and ride the R7. Then we'll hop on my bike and talk about how the latest R6 rides along with how my bike rides, and see, is the R7 an upgrade from an R6? All right, so we are setting off on the R7 to get our bearings, and then we'll take my bike out to feel out my R6 along with the last year for the R6. But R7 certainly seems pretty tossable, easy to rev match, very easy to throw in turns. It has a lot of torque down low. It doesn't feel like you gotta be high RPM to get some power. I'm even in third gear, just cruising, and when I want to float around a turn, it has the torque. So I feel like you can kind of hold it in a gear better and just maintain a certain speed. I feel like handling is pretty good, braking does a good job. Nice and torquey. It doesn't feel like a fast bike. I mean, not to say you can't hit 70 miles an hour without thinking, but it doesn't have crazy top end, I'm finding. So let's get to some speed in first gear. You can easily wheelie on the bike, so it has that torque. A little tiny bit. But then just giving it some gas in second gear, you can feel the torque pulling when you're just going around a turn. Nice sweepers. Yeah, the bike, it handles nicely. It seems like you can really kind of rip on it, use the entire engine while you're out on the main roads, whether you're on the back mountain roads or something like that. You really can use all the power. I've hit red light on the bike a few times. And full throttle. But it seems like it's just peppy around town. One drawback I'm finding already, it doesn't have that top end to where it really throws you back in your seat. Like even in fourth gear, full throttle, it's just a slow revving engine. It's not crazy. So is this an upgrade or downgrade? It doesn't feel like it's an upgrade. It's not like this is a faster, more raw car at all. It's almost like Yamaha took a sidestep from the R6, and instead of making it even more track focused, more performance and raw, they kind of toned down the race aspects to make it maybe a little bit livable around town. This feels just as comfortable, I would say, as the R6 from the last few years. I mean, I personally think the R6 was always a comfortable bike. It just fits my proportions really well, so I enjoy riding it. I think my bike's more comfortable than a CBR. So it kind of depends on your own proportions, you know, your body height, your own preferences. But I feel like it's a comfortable bike around town. It's easy to toss around the turns, great braking system, and the power. You just get pretty good down low torque to get up and go. You don't really have to worry about any low spots when you're first initially getting up to some speed, but you're certainly lacking top end. There's no crazy horsepower where you're going to hit 100 miles an hour instantly. This bike, I've only topped out around 70 filming it today, and that's getting on it, shifting, hitting the red line, and stuff like that. So it seems like it's lacking the raw performance in favor of some more livable aspects. All right, so we are setting off now. I gotta say, the R6 feels so much different already. Now, obviously, you know, mine's much older than this one, but the top end on my bike carries well. It looked like she was shifting twice, but obviously the top end of the R6 is significantly more than the R7. There's just such a more racy vibe on this bike. I really am coming out of this review feeling like they took the R6 and toned it down, kind of tamed it for the street to just give you a more like streetable bike. But I think it kind of depends on what you want. I love the raw aspects with my R6. It really is just on your toes. It's always super exciting to be behind the steering wheel of this thing just because it is an aggressive raw bike to be on. The R7 has definitely kind of toned down a little bit in favor of that more normal riding experience. They both look good for sure. And I cannot wheelie to save my life on this bike. The latest year R6, you can definitely wheelie it. It has that better torque than mine. But definitely interesting to ride both of the bikes back to back. Looks like that is gonna be it. We'll say goodbye to the R7. Definitely an awesome bike. See ya. Oh man. All right, so final thoughts now. Yeah, there is a night and day difference. The acceleration on the R6, it just pulls and pulls and pulls till you are breaking every single speed limit around town. I mean, this thing can get you into trouble if you're abusing it a little bit. Yeah, see, the R7 doesn't get you into that high speed like this one. This one, you'll hit 100 miles an hour if you're redlining it. 16,500 RPM is about where this thing redlines, so this thing just goes. So it's crazy. It's almost like the R7 is take an R3 but make it bigger for a grown-up, because the R3 is kind of more for shorter people, inexperienced riders who are really novice to the whole sport of riding a two-wheeler like this. The R6 is for someone who's been on a bike before, has experience, just because it's a bigger bike, you know, it weighs 400 pounds, so it's a little bit bigger to where you need to be able to manage it better. However, it's still a good beginner bike. I think if you at least have some sort of experience on even just motocross or bicycles or anything, and you're more of a performance mindset person, maybe into performance cars or something, I feel like the R7 would be a good beginner bike for you. However, I feel like they've taken away some of the extra exciting aspects that I love in this bike. I have owned this bike for 5-6 years now, and it is so thrilling because it pulls you back in your seat in the higher RPM. I mean, it really does. Only downfalls with my bike, low end, you gotta get above about 6,000 RPM to start getting the power. So having a little bit less torque, a little bit not as down low gearing, it takes a little bit just to get moving, but once you are, obviously it's crazy fast. So I personally kind of like the newest R6 the best if I had to choose between the three and money was no object, because the newer R6, while my bike is actually faster, we raced the 2020 against my bike. And my extra top end does take the win, but you know, I don't really ever redline this bike. I'm maybe going to 12,000 RPM 99% of the time. So it's not like I'm really using all of the R6's capabilities out here, to where the last year for the R6 would be a better bet just because it gets that down low torque that I'm missing from my own bike, but it still gets some crazy top end. The R7 gets you just a tad bit more down low torque, but it's really lacking that higher RPM, crazy rip your face off performance that I really enjoy. So I think the R7 is a sidestep from the R6. They've taken away that high-end racing vibe and just given you a little bit more livable, toned-down machine. So I'm a little disappointed in that aspect just because I love the race bikes for the road, and I know a lot of other riders out there kind of miss that. You know, now it's like you have to get an R1 to get to that crazy race stuff. So it's a little interesting approach. It'll be interesting how well it sells, and if Yamaha decides to revamp it or revamp the R6 or something, not too sure. Overall though, I think the R7 is a really solid choice because it's going to give you a really good handling street bike for the street, and it's going to give you the torque you need to really just have fun and use it. So it truly is a usable sport bike on the road, but it is crazy to see them take away some of that high RPM racing that the R6 always had. I think a good way to compare the two bikes is, if you're into motocross at all, look at a Yamaha TTR 230. That's going to be a nice powerful bike for maybe a dad to ride around with his kids. However, if you look at a YZ250, while it has nearly the same size engine, that's a more performance-focused race bike. I feel like the R7 and the R6 are that same kind of regards. The R7 isn't going to be the race bike, even though it has a bigger engine, more displacement, even though it has less cylinders than the R6. It's got that low-end torque, great for riding around town, great for the mountain trips, and great for usable power when you're not crazy going abusing the bike. You get the YZ250, of course, to do the track racing and things like that. That's what I ride, you know, as a dirt bike, and that's been my race bike. The 230 would be something for trail riding. So when you look at the R6 and R7, the R7 is that well-rounded machine, while the R6 is the one that can go to the track and obliterate the track, and it has all the race bike vibes in it. So I think that's the biggest difference. If you want a race-inspired sport bike, the R6 is the way to go. Certainly get one of them, pick up a good used one, and you're gonna be able to have an exhilarating ride. If you want a really good road bike that is a sport bike, the R7 is the way to go because it has a little bit more toned down aspects to be usable. On a personal level, I would still go R6 just because I like doing mountain trips and I like abusing my bike a little bit, getting up there, so it's definitely a fun aspect. But there you guys go, those are my thoughts on the new R7, comparing it to the last years for the R6, along with my own R6. Great bike overall, just definitely a sidestep. They took away that crazy top end in favor of the more relaxing type of riding. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video.